Lena had always been the kind of friend who would drop everything to be there for Sarah. When Sarah asked her to be a bridesmaid, Lena was honored, though there was a quiet ache that she couldn't fully explain. Sarah and Tom had been inseparable for years, and everyone had always assumed that they were the perfect couple. But Lena's heart had a secret. For as long as she could remember, she had been in love with Tom. It was one of those quiet, deep, love something she could never voice, because it would mean betraying her best friend. On Sarah and Tom's wedding day, Lena stood beside her, smiling, but it was impossible to ignore the knot in her chest. Watching Sarah walk down the aisle, so radiant and sure, Lena felt a pang. She was happy for Sarah, of course, but there was a part of her that resented the union. It was a love Lena had buried for years, a love she convinced herself was impossible, unrequited, and ultimately futile. At the reception, Lena found herself sitting next to Tom more than once, exchanging small talk. Their conversations flowed easily, just like they always had, but tonight it felt different. There was a tension in the air, something unspoken, something that lingered between them like a secret. Their eyes met several times, and each time, Lena quickly looked away. But one fleeting moment, their hands brushed against each other. Neither of them pulled away. It was only a few weeks later when everything changed. Lena had just fought with her boyfriend, John. It was a stupid argument, something about her not prioritizing their relationship, and it had left her feeling raw and vulnerable. She needed to talk, to unload the frustration and sadness that had built up inside her. So, she called Tom. They had always been friends, after all. Tom, ever the good listener, agreed to meet her at her apartment. They sat on the couch, talking about everything and nothing at all. Lena spilled her heart, talking about how unsatisfied she had been lately, how everything seemed to be falling apart. Tom listened intently, his eyes soft with empathy. He reassured her, offering comfort and support, telling her that it was okay to feel lost sometimes. And then, in a moment that felt both inevitable and wrong, Tom leaned in and kissed her. Lena didn't pull away. She didn't stop him. It was the kind of kiss that wasn't born out of passion at first, but out of need. They were both seeking something. They didn't know how to express pain, loneliness, confusion. And in that kiss, the walls around Lena's heart crumbled. The feelings she had kept hidden for years rushed to the surface, and in a haze, they found themselves in bed together. It felt like betrayal, but it also felt like something she had been craving for far too long. The days that followed were a blur. Tom and Lena kept their affair a secret, hidden behind stolen moments and furtive glances. It felt like a twisted kind of love, something forbidden and yet exhilarating. Lena tried to convince herself that it wasn't wrong. She tried to rationalize it. Tom and Sarah had their problems. Sarah wasn't perfect. Tom wasn't perfect. But neither was she. It didn't take long for Lena to realize that she had gone too far, that the guilt was starting to weigh on her. But still, she couldn't stop. She was lost in the chaos she had created. The cracks in Sarah and Tom's marriage began to show. Sarah, perceptive and intuitive, began noticing the distance between her and Tom. He was always distracted, cold, or distant. The conversations between them had grown strained. Sarah confided in Lena, asking if she thought something was wrong with Tom, and Lena, with a mixture of guilt and denial, reassured her that everything was fine. But everything wasn't fine. One evening, after another quiet, strained dinner with Sarah and Tom, Lena found herself alone with Tom once more. The tension between them was thick, charged with unspoken words. The guilt was choking her. She knew this couldn't go on, but she couldn't find the strength to stop. She wanted to hold onto the illusion of this thing they had. She wanted to pretend it didn't hurt as much as it did. And then it happened. Sarah walked in. She didn't even say anything at first. The look on her face was enough. It was disbelief, hurt, and fury, all mixed into one. The silence that followed was suffocating. Sarah's voice shook when she spoke, but her words were clear. "How could you, Lena?" Lena couldn't find the words to explain, to apologize. She had no excuse. All she could do was watch as Sarah packed a bag and walked out of the apartment. It was the end, and Lena knew it. She had lost everything. Days passed in a haze of emptiness. Lena tried to reach out to Sarah, to apologize, but Sarah refused to take her calls. Each attempt felt like a knife in her chest, each message unanswered a silent judgment. Lena could barely face herself in the mirror. She had betrayed her best friend, the one person who had always been there for her, and there was no way to undo it. The guilt crushed her. She didn't know how to fix what she had broken. She tried to talk to John, but their relationship had already begun to fall apart. John was distant now, his frustration with Lena's emotional instability clear. He had noticed the distance between Lena and Sarah long before Lena had admitted it to herself. But now, with everything out in the open, John didn't know how to stand by her anymore. He left too. Lena was alone. She had no one left. No Sarah, no Tom, not even John. And the weight of her actions sank deep inside her. Months went by, and Lena, though hollow, tried to rebuild her life. She found herself in therapy, finally confronting the pain and the damage she had caused. But no amount of self-help or self-reflection could erase the broken trust, the betrayal. She could apologize until her voice was hoarse, but there was no going back. One evening, Sarah showed up at Lena's door. It had been months since they last spoke, and Lena's heart pounded as she saw her standing there, her face a mixture of sorrow and determination. "I can't forgive you," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper, but it was clear. "What you did, to me, to Tom. I don't think I'll ever be able to look at you the same way again." Lena nodded, her eyes filled with tears. She had no defense, no excuse. She had betrayed her best friend, and now there was nothing left to say. "I understand," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Sarah didn't say anything else. She turned and walked away, her back straight, her steps deliberate. It was the finality Lena had been dreading, the moment when she finally realized that some things couldn't be fixed, some wounds couldn't be healed. The days that followed were quieter, lonelier. Lena continued with her life, but it was different now. She had learned to live with the pain, the loss, and the knowledge that she had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. One day, months later, Lena received a simple message from Sarah. "I'm doing okay. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something." And in that something, Lena found the faintest glimmer of hope that perhaps, with time, she might be able to rebuild. Not with Sarah, maybe, but with herself. And that was enough.